Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Catch. My name is Sam and I am the founder and lead coach here at Catch. We believe that unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything that you want in life and dating. So on this channel we talk about confidence, mindset and how you apply that in your dating life and in relationships. And also it's all applicable to other areas of your life too, but we like to focus on dating and relationships. In this video, we're going to be talking a bit more about when you feel confident and secure and clear on your worth and your value, what does that actually feel like internally and what does that start to look like in your life? And I'm going to be bringing that to life with some personal examples or some examples from people that we've worked with. It doesn't mean that it has to look exactly like that for you, but useful to know when you picture that most confident, secure, bad bitch, boss energy version of yourself, what will that feel like so that you know when you're getting closer to that and when you're in that space. And also it might, by looking at or talking about some of the areas in this video, you might then know, okay, actually I'm good in this place. This is generally true for me, but there's a bit more work to do on these areas. And if you work on all of these areas, then that should create that most confident, secure, knowing version of you that knows that they can get whatever they want in their life and they deserve it. The first of these things is the majority of the time feeling centered and calm within yourself. Of course, there are going to be moments where something triggers you or you get frustrated or something winds you up. Those emotions are completely normal, but we're talking about generally you feel centered and calm within yourself. And when your emotions are regulated and your nervous system is regulated most of the time, what that looks like is that you believe in yourself and you believe that you can achieve the things that you want in your life and the goals that you're working towards, or create the relationships that you're after, whether that's a romantic relationship, family relationships, or with friends, and that you trust yourself enough that as challenges come up, you'll be able to work through them. What it also looks like is when those challenges do come up or you are triggered or you feel a surge of emotion, you are relatively quickly able to bring that emotion down, come back to a calm and centered place and observe whatever circumstances you're in from a more objective place and then focus on the solution. So rather than getting too sucked into the problem and constantly thinking about the problem and sitting in anxiety and worry and thinking about the worst case scenarios, you're able to see past that and think about, okay, what action do I take to get me closer to my desired outcome? Because when you're able to focus on the solution, that comes from a place of being able to step back, observe the situation, and then again, you trust yourself to figure out what action to take to improve that situation. And you believe that you do have an influence and you can change the circumstances in your life, whether that's in exactly the situation you're in now, or perhaps you need to change some things in your life to achieve what you want, but you believe you can take the action to do that. The opposite is when you're emotionally dysregulated and you feel up and down all over the place, you feel anxious most of the time. When small challenges pop up, they feel insurmountable and you don't feel like you have influence on your life. So you feel more in a victim mindset and you aren't sure how you can influence your life. So what we really want is that calm and centered space, which you can get through emotional regulation and nervous system regulation, through things like meditation, yoga. Some people like even Tai Chi and those sorts of things, or EFT tapping, breath work, anything that can keep you out of that fight or flight mode and into that more rest and reset mode where you feel calm and centered. The second indicator that you are feeling confident and secure is that you know and trust people around you like you. And that might be colleagues, family, friends, or potential romantic partners, or even strangers that you meet. So it's having that inner confidence and belief that you are worthy and valuable, you are interesting, you are fun to be around, and that people are lucky to interact with you and they also see your worth and your value. It also means that you're confident in your quirks and what's unique about you. You know that you're worthy regardless of any little things that you enjoy doing that other people might consider geeky or something that they wouldn't necessarily be into, and you own those things and you don't care what other people think about you, and you enjoy those things regardless. It also means that you believe that your presence is enough because people like you. You just being there, you add value to every situation you're in, you bring something to every situation you're in, and people are lucky to interact with you. So you don't need to overwork and give and do things for people for them to like you. You don't have to be proving your worth all the time. You know that you just being there is enough of a gift to that person. And actually, what it can feel like when you know people like you and challenges, well, when you trust yourself and you know people like you and when challenges pop up, it can actually feel like confusion. So when you really know who you are and you know that people like you and you know that you add something to the situations that you're in and you know that you're valuable and you're worthy and you're good enough for everything that you want in your life, when the world doesn't reflect that, other people don't reflect that to you, it actually feels confusing. You know, if you apply for a job that you know that you're qualified for and someone else gets it, you sort of think, oh, okay, well that's a shame, but I know that, you know, I'm good enough for that job, so I'll just apply for another one and I'll get it. Or perhaps they'll change their mind, or that person won't accept the offer and they'll come back and offer it to me. And that can also apply in dating as well. So it might be that somebody cancels a date last minute, or they don't reply to a text for a couple of days, or you go on a date and you don't hear from them after that. But actually, when you're really sure that they like you, those things don't really bother you. They feel confusing. It's like, well, wait a minute, I know that person is really interested in me. Why wouldn't they pursue it with me? And I've actually had this multiple times in dating where perhaps a friendship has developed into more than friends, and during that time that person and I would be speaking about whether to take it further, and the other, I was thinking about one example in particular, the other person said, oh, I'm not sure if I want to potentially ruin the friendship. And in my head I thought, well, I know they're really into me, so that's a bit weird, I'll just leave them to it. And then 2 weeks later they turned around and said, oh, I've changed my mind, I do want to date you, let's go out on a date. And we ended up in a relationship for quite a few years after that. So a really big indicator that you're feeling confident is that you're centered and calm, so these challenges or perceived challenges don't really bother you, and you know and trust that people like you and you're worthy, so why wouldn't they like you or want you for that job or want to invite you to that party? And therefore anything that crops up that doesn't align with that doesn't bother you, but it also just feels weird. Like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense to me. And then what you'll see is often that does change. Whereas if you're not confident that somebody likes you, then some of those little things feel very personal, very final, and like they could never change. And you start to think to yourself, well, how can I get them to like me? What can I do to change their mind? And the energy around it is very different. So you can start to observe that within yourself. And the more centered and calm you are, the more you can actually observe some of that inner talk and those emotions and how you respond to different situations that then tell you what beliefs you have about yourself and others and how confident you are in different areas of your life. And that might be quite different in work versus your personal life. Some people are much more confident in their personal life than they are in work, or vice versa. So useful to observe. Following on from knowing and trusting that other people like you is that therefore you assume other people's behaviour is more about them than it is about you. So like in that example that I just covered, that person saying to me, oh, I'm not sure I want to progress a relationship with you, it didn't feel personal to me. It felt like something that was going on with them, just an internal debate that they were having, something they had to work through, and I knew that at some stage they were going to change their mind and something would probably happen between us. So I didn't take it personally. It felt like something to do with them. It's a lot easier for you to see and assume the best in others. So if someone feels off to you, maybe a good friend that you have, and they seem off for a few days, You might think, oh, is something going on with them? But you wouldn't necessarily think it's to do with you personally. You might think it's stress from work, stress from other friendships, stress from family, or you feel confident just enough to say, have I done anything? Is there something that I've done? And just have that direct conversation with them, or leave it for a few days and then have that conversation with them. But the key is that you don't really take that stuff personally, and you assume that it's going to play out and it's going to work out and you'll figure it out in the end, and it's just a short-term thing that's going to change. It doesn't feel like a huge mountain that you need to figure out, and you don't need to overanalyze that person, figure out what's going on and why you're in the circumstance or the situation that you're in at any time. You also don't question your worth or your value based on others' behavior. So if you know that you're worthy and you're valuable, then perhaps someone not texting for a couple of days or not following up on a second date, it doesn't make you question if you're good enough or what you did wrong or if there's something that you could have improved. And although that introspection is helpful, it doesn't necessarily rock you to your core and rock your confidence and make you think, oh, what did I do wrong, and unpick every moment of that interaction and where could I have possibly said something and what should I do differently next time. It just feels like, oh, okay, they've got something going on and I'm sure I'll hear from them when it's panned out, or I can speak to them or interact another time, and well, I'm worthy and good enough, so must be something that's going on with them. And again, you can observe this within yourself. So when I felt really confident in knowing that somebody does like me, and I know that I'm a catch and that I'm worthy and that anyone would be lucky to have me, if I don't hear back from someone in a few hours or a day, my automatic thought will be, oh, they're just playing a bit hard to get, or they're just a little busy and they'll get back to me tomorrow and apologise. And that's typically what happens. But then if I'm not too sure how that person feels about me or not feeling too confident about myself, then I can notice that those thoughts are more like, oh, what did I do wrong? What did I say in that last text message? Did I do something to upset them, etc.? And then I feel scared to take any action to resolve it either. But I'm also not trusting that it will play out or that the situation will change. It just feels like I've done something wrong and it's personal, and they're not responding to me on purpose, and I can't see how it's going to work out. So you can observe within yourself, do I believe this person likes me, and does their behaviour feel personal to me or not, and am I trusting it's going to work out and change or not? What's very interesting about this as well is that when you do trust other people like you, and you assume the best about others and yourself, and you trust situations will play out and work out fine and you'll get what you want in the end, that's typically what happens. It becomes self-fulfilling, because the more that you get sucked into a situation and overanalyze it and become anxious about it, then any subsequent interactions you have with that person reinforce that, so they can feel the anxious energy, and it sort of perpetuates whatever perception that you have. So this is where being centered and calm is also really helpful, because you can observe any bits of your confidence that might be lacking or negative perceptions that you have, and actually intercept those and change them and observe it more neutrally from a centered and calm place, and figure out what to do about it, which then makes the more positive outcome, or the outcome that you want, more likely to happen. Building on from this is something that we just mentioned, is trust. So trust in yourself that you can resolve a situation, and anything that happens, you can overcome it. Trust in the other person, as we just talked about, assuming the best, assuming their behaviour is not about you, and that they don't intend to come across a certain way or hurt you or do anything. It's just things that are going on with them. And as we just said, trust that a situation will play out and work itself out. And critically, you know when you're in a trusting place because you feel more patient. Things don't need to happen right away. You don't need to see someone the next day after a first date. You don't need to hear from somebody in a few hours. You know, because you know they're into you, you know their behavior isn't about you, and you know that sometimes when someone meets someone amazing like you are, it can actually shake them, and they're working through some things internally to feel good enough for you, or to progress the relationship with you. Those are the sorts of perceptions that you'll start to have when you're feeling really secure and confident and knowing of how amazing you are. You'll think, oh, they're not replying to me because they're shaking about how amazing I am, or they're working through some of their own stuff internally so that they can be more open and vulnerable with me. And that's the level of trust and belief that you have. And you also don't expect situations to be resolved instantly. So if there is something that happens and maybe you look at it, you sit back in that calm and centered way, okay, I know they like me, and I know that I'm a great catch, and I know that this behavior isn't about me. So if I take all that into account, I know that this action is going to make a difference. I know if I send a message and ask if they're okay, that's what's going to bring us closer together. But you don't necessarily expect a response instantly. You've put the intention out there. You know deep down it was the right action based on your situation and because you're confident. And you can just let it play out. Okay, I might not hear back straight away, but I might hear back in a few hours or even a few days. Eventually they'll resurface and tell me what's going on, or our relationship may be a bit more, initial forming stages now, but we're going to get closer. That person's going to open up. We're going to have more fun. You can always see a vision of what's going to happen in the future, and you trust that it's going to progress towards that desirable place that you want. And that's what trust really is. And finally, we've talked a lot about knowing your worth and your value in this video so far, but connected to that and the fifth piece is very clear on what you want and you feel like you deserve it. So you believe it so clearly within you, and you're clear that you want this specific thing and you know that you deserve it, and therefore you expect it's going to happen and you believe that it's going to happen, because why wouldn't it? You're good enough, you're worthy, you're valuable, you're an amazing person, you want this sort of relationship, so why, or this sort of dating connection even, why couldn't you have that? And if you're feeling really confident and secure, then the answer to that question should be nothing. Even if it's something completely new that no one's ever had before, no one in your friends and family have had, maybe you meet someone on holiday who lives in another country and you need to figure out how you're going to find a way to live together. But deep down, because you're worthy and deserving and valuable, and that person likes you, that you're going to figure it out. And it might not be today and it might not be tomorrow, but that's what you're going to experience. And it's having belief in that, regardless of what challenges or circumstances might pop up that feel like they're in the way, but you know that you're going to get past them and you're going to get what you want in the end. Also, because you're clear on what you want and you know that you deserve it, you tend to naturally gravitate towards those scenarios. So, for example, say you go on a couple of dates with somebody and you want someone who does message you a lot and you do see frequently, and you're not seeing that from this person right now. And maybe there's someone else who you met who does act in that way, but you don't know either of them well enough yet to make a determination if they're compatible for you or not. You will naturally gravitate towards the person that treats you how you desire, because that's what you want and you believe that you deserve it. So you'll naturally be drawn to those sorts of connections and those sorts of interactions, in the same way that if you know you're a certain seniority at work, those are the jobs you're going to apply for. You wouldn't apply for a manager role when you're a director. You wouldn't apply for an analyst role or an entry-level role when you've already been a manager for 5 years. You know that you're worth this certain level of treatment. So why would you entertain and apply for something else? You just wouldn't entertain it. And that's what it feels like when you're really confident within yourself. And again, what's interesting is that you can end up creating that. So when you expect a certain level of treatment, you know you deserve it, you know you're worthy of it, you know that you're a catch, you just end up you won't put energy into people who don't treat you that way, and therefore often they notice that, they feel that energy from you, and they step up, as well as attracting in people who treat you how you want. Also, when you're clear on what you want and deserve, you naturally start to prioritize yourself and do the things that make you happy, because you feel like you deserve it and you feel like you are worthy of the sort of life that you want. So not only are you attracted to those situations, but you do the things that make you feel good, and you don't overly self-sacrifice to make other people happy, or not at least at the expense of your own happiness. And when we talk about prioritizing ourselves, that's really what we mean. It's what's going to make you happy on a moment-to-moment basis, on a day-to-day basis, and doing those things, whether that's working towards a long-term goal, spending time with friends, exercising, investing in yourself because you know that you're worthy and deserving of it. And finally, the biggest indicator that you're clear on what you want and deserve is that you actually drop the resentment to people who don't necessarily treat you that way. And that can be a bit of a funny one, and it might not come straight away for everybody, but the reason that that resentment drops is when you really know that you are creating something in your life, like you're going to get that new senior job, you're going to get that relationship. When people come along and don't mirror that back to you and don't give you that opportunity, when you know deep down, I'm amazing, I'm worthy of that opportunity or that type of relationship, I know that's what I want, I know that I deserve it, and I trust that I'm going to get it at some point in the future. When people offer you something less, you might be frustrated for a moment or hurt for a moment, but it won't stick around as long-term anger and resentment, because that's just someone who was a bit confused and made a mistake, and in the future they'll regret it and change their mind, or somebody else will come along and offer you that. So why would you waste energy on anger and negativity about people who don't necessarily give you exactly what you want and deserve? You would just leave it and move on. And again, I'll give a personal example of how this played out once for me. So back when I was at university, or just after university, I carried on in the city where my university was, which was about 2.5 hours from where I grew up. And there was somebody who I had spoken to on and off during university who did a similar course to me. And after university, they moved back to where we both grew up, which was where we both lived just outside London. And we started talking more and more and getting to know each other a bit better. But at this point, there was still sort of 2.5 hours between us. And then one weekend, he was actually coming up to the university town to visit some friends who were still there. And so he said, look, it would be really nice to meet up. I was working in a restaurant at that time and a club. So I was working basically the whole weekend across those two jobs. This before I'd started my graduate position in an office job. So I said, look, I'm really sorry, I can't meet you. But we did speak on the phone, and it turned out that he was going to be going out to a bar that I had a friend's birthday after I finished work at the restaurant and the club. So I said, well, I'll see you at that bar and it will be nice to catch up with you. It might not be one-on-one, but we can say hello. So anyway, I finish work and I turn up at this birthday, walk into the bar, and there's the chap that I had been speaking to, and he was actually flirting with and getting to know another woman by the bar. And in fact, I think they were even kissing. And what was funny is that I knew that that individual really liked me because we've been speaking a lot. I just had that feeling. I had that confidence in myself. I wasn't necessarily interested in pursuing a serious relationship until I was able to move back closer to London and we were closer together. And I remember seeing it and thinking, he's going to regret that. And I didn't text him and say, can't believe you did that. I didn't get annoyed. I just went on and enjoyed my night. And in fact, later on in the evening, he ended up messaging me because he saw me talking to some male friends at this party, got the wrong end of the stick, and then he got jealous. So he ended up messaging me and saying, oh, I thought we were getting along really well, etc. And I wasn't even angry at him. I just thought he's going to regret that. And after that, he carried on to pursuing me for quite a few more weeks, and actually about 18 months in the end. And by that point, I was in a new relationship, he was in a new relationship. But when we were back in London, he was still, trying to meet up with me and get to know me and trying to help me out with things, which I eventually had to completely cut off and say, look, we're both in relationships. I don't think it's appropriate for us to have any contact when I think you actually want more. So that just shows in that situation, I could have been really angry and frustrated and thought, why have you, pursued me and then come all the way to the university town, 2.5 hours from home. We've got very little time to see one another, and you decide to pursue someone else. I could have been annoyed, but I actually just wasn't, because it didn't affect how I felt about myself or my worth and my value. And then because of that, the situation turned around. So hopefully this video was helpful. Just wanted to talk through a few of the things that we know from experience and through working with clients that they feel when they feel secure and confident within themselves, and therefore how to know, if you've been working on yourself, if you are feeling confident and secure within yourself. And that is that you feel centered and calm most of the time, you know and trust people like you, and therefore their behavior isn't a reflection on you, it's just about them or something going on with them. You trust yourself to figure things out and others, and you trust that situations are going to work themselves out, and you're patient about that and doesn't have to happen straight away. And you're very clear on what you want and you deserve, and you naturally gravitate to the people and situations that affirm that. Naturally don't put energy into what doesn't reflect that, and actually don't hold on to resentment for people that don't hold that. And when you have those things in place, not only will you feel amazing within yourself, but as we've talked about, you'll actually see situations start to turn around and completely change because you have that confidence. So I hope this resonated. As I say, I hope it was useful. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to comment them down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye.